This week in Torah, we find ourselves in the midst of Jacob's story. Jacob, having fled from his home, having absconded with the birthright that was not meant to be his, but perhaps it was meant to be his as he wound up with it, having traveled to find a wife, having found not one wife, but two wives, and having multiplied his home and his goods and all of the souls that he, like his grandfather Abraham, had accumulated. And he has an encounter in this week's Torah portion where he is about to meet Esau. He's about to try and reconcile with Esau after years apart, and he's anxious and he's scared. And if you know the story, you know there's some business with a back and forth across a river. Jacob puts all of his belongings in front of him, sends all of his belongings up ahead, tells the men who are taking the belongings to let Esau know that they come from Jacob and they are indeed for Esau, a gift. And then Jacob settles in for the night. And the Torah says in the middle of the night, or as he was sleeping, he arose. Suddenly something shifted within him. And he decided to send his children and his wives to the other side of the river, where he would then remain alone for the night. And Jacob has famously what we might know as a dark night of the soul. A man appears and wrestles with Jacob, and they wrestle until dawn. And as the light is raising, as the light is coming into the sky, this stranger, this man, this Ish, as the Torah calls him, says, "Let me go. The dawn is coming. I have to go." And Jacob says, "I will not let you go until you bless me." And at this point, a few things happen. One, Jacob gets a blessing. His name is changed from Jacob to Yisrael. But another interesting piece happens, which is that we read that he is hurt, that in this altercation with this Ish, his hip is wrenched from its socket or somehow damaged through this struggle. And so Jacob is not only changed in his new name afterwards, Yisrael, one who struggles with God, but Jacob is also physically changed after this encounter. I myself am coming up on the 5th year anniversary of a big accident in which I was struck also in the hip. I resonate deeply with Jacob in this week's Torah portion. And there is something about physical pain that can change a person. It can change us in any direction. The playwright Tony Kushner writes in his epic play, Angels in America, writes about this kind of change. One character asks another, "In your estimation, how do people change?" And the other character responds that change has something to do with God, and so it's not easy, and it's not pretty, and in fact, it can be painful. Jacob begins to teach us this lesson in this week's Torah portion of how we are in fact changed by the physical occurrences in our lives, and how we can move on toward healing and perhaps even a renewed identity, having moved through that pain and through that trauma. And so I offer you just this thought on this Thursday. What is it in your life that perhaps has changed you the way that Jacob has been changed? And how can we as human beings move through the painful moments on to whatever comes next?